Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to today's conversation with Chris Wolf from Caspa. So a lot of you guys have asked us on our streams to give you kind of like some information about the Caspa project. And so what we did is we just called the Caspa people to an interview. So we have today with me Chris Wolf from Business Development. Welcome, Chris.
Hey guys, thanks for the invite. Very flattering to be included on your show. Appreciate that.
Thanks so much, for joining us. So, what we typically do is, so today I have with me Danny. He's usually presenting our streams, and so perhaps he has a question, but I have a bunch of those for you already prepped. And typically what we do on these streams is like people would ask us for some technical analysis and of obviously price movements, and that's not going to be the topic of today's conversation. But what we also do is like we do these project research. We do project research where we, check what the project is about, who the team members are, what the roadmap is, and how the team has delivered so far and whatnot. And so that way we're kind of also trying to show a different side of the project beyond the price movement. And in my view, that kind of gives a bigger picture of the project than just the graph.
Great.
So basically, you're from business development, and can you just shortly introduce yourself? And then with that, you could also start what the primary goal of the Caspa project is, and in how does it kind of differentiate itself from other cryptocurrencies. So let's start off with that.
Sure, that sounds great. Thanks a lot. Hey guys, I am Wolfie, Chris Wolf. I go by Wolfie. There's way too many Chris's. Every single place I ever go, there's 2 or 3 other Chris's there. So I've been Wolfie for a long time, before even Bitcoin came out. Anyway, I'm in Southern California, and I volunteer as Director of Business Development for Caspa Currency. Caspa's a pretty neat project. It features a significant breakthrough to crypto and distributed computing. And probably the best way to explain what that is to go back in time to the founder, excuse me, and explain how Caspa really came about. So there's a brilliant gentleman from the crypto space named Jonathan Sampolinski. He's been around for over 10 years. And so he was working on his PhD in Israel, and somebody gave him the idea of doing something to do with Bitcoin. Of course, that was back probably in around 2012. So he heard about Bitcoin. He looked into it, and he immediately wondered to himself, like, hey, if this is magic internet money, and how come everything else I do on the internet is instant, but if I want to send internet money to you guys, it takes 10 or 20 or 30 minutes. That's not instant. I want it to be like pow, just like everything else. Looking on Google, pow, it's right there. The money should be right there too. So he took a bash at speeding up blockchain, and the first protocol he created was called Ghost. And then Mr. Vitalik, when he was looking for some structure to put the framework for Ethereum together, the Ghost paper came out in 2013. Vitalik and his crew found the Ghost protocol from Jonathan, and they included it in Ethereum. That's how Ethereum, most people would probably know by now, like Bitcoin, the OG granddaddy digital gold, has a 10-minute block time. So it only has a package of transactions once every 10 minutes. And Ethereum was able to speed that up to 12 seconds, so significantly faster through the use of the Ghost protocol.
But still waiting at the till at the grocery store for 12 seconds to confirm a transaction is still way too long, I suppose.
It's long, yeah, that's right, exactly. So anyway, Jonathan's first try at speeding up the experience of magic internet money got us to 12 seconds. And since 2013, he wrote successively more progressive and perfected protocols, the latest and greatest of which is called Ghost DAG, which, by the way, the Ghost in Ghost DAG is not really related to the Ghost from Ethereum. It's completely different and much more advanced. So the magic about Ghost DAG is that instead of having the blockchain where we have one block at a time and that's it, we include orphans, and we allow simultaneous blocks in parallel, simultaneous parallel blocks which are ordered in consensus. So what that means is, if maybe you guys can cut in on the edit or somehow include a little link to our network visualizer so people understand what I'm talking about here. But
yeah.
So we'll have 5 blocks at the same time, then we'll have 2, then we'll have 1, then we'll have 6, then we'll have 3. So with this DAG structure is just different amounts, whatever amount come out at that little snip of time are included, but they're ordered in consensus. So what it really boils down to is like, so in blockchain, there's how the transactions, which transaction came before which one, because it's in a previous block or, the next block. So what we do is it's like we take a blockchain and we squeeze it down like an accordion until they're all bunched together.
Mhm.
But really, of course, we're not bending the laws of physics and compressing time or anything. It's just the math and the computer science behind it, and the breakthrough protocol of GoStag allows these simultaneous blocks, but they're still ordered. So one transaction is not gonna be at the same time if it's next to a block. If the exact same transaction is in two blocks that are in parallel, one block is still ordered before the other, so it's not a problem. So that's pretty neat. And we were able to, I didn't have anything to do with that part of it, but
you're part of the team, I guess. So
yeah, I just tell people how great it is and try to get us on every platform, every place where there's Bitcoin, Solana, Ethereum, I try to get Caspa right next to it. But anyway,
Okay.
they got the block time to 1 second blocks. So now if I send you guys Caspa coins, you get them in 1 second. Like if I send them to you, then you can send them to him in 10 seconds. And we have a high-speed test network. So we have another network that's a test network that's running at 10 blocks per second now for about 9 or 10 months, running like a top. And we've refined the software extensively and upgraded it for performance. Many of the sub-modules, which also many of those are breakthrough, which I can get into later. But yeah, so we're right now we're 600 times faster than Bitcoin, and our test network is 6,000 times faster than Bitcoin, all while magically being proof of work, right? And fair launch, no ICO, completely decentralized. It's just open source software on GitHub. So, it's very cliche to say we're just like Bitcoin because everyone's been saying that for the last 15 years. But I mean, it's really very similar. If I had to describe Caspa in one sentence, I would say it's like the turbo great grandson of Bitcoin. It's very similar. It's just, modern technology for now. If you remember, think of what did your cell phone look like in 2009, or what did the dashboard, what did the screen in your car look like in 2009? That's the technology of Bitcoin is from then. And all they did was add seed words and like some other BEP32 address scheme thing. It doesn't really do anything new, hardly, besides that.
Thanks much. Yeah.
I love
Thanks
Bitcoin.
much. Can I use this as a segue for a question?
Yeah, sorry.
Because I know, so I would that actually came up in one of the conversations when we discussed. All right, so let's say Caspa is faster than Bitcoin, and well, okay, so that's an advantage, obviously, and a use case for that. But then immediately we're getting feedback. Yeah, but like, what about Bitcoin Lightning Network? That's gonna be faster and all that. So we get some people say that, but I personally wanted to ask whether you guys also support smart contracts on Caspa. Is that a thing?
Two great questions. So question number one, the Lightning Network. I am not a developer. However, I hang around with some people that are, so in the core chat, even though there's technically no core because Caspa is decentralized, we have a room called core chat. And, the PhD guys and, the ultra wizards that came up with our technology are in there. And I've seen discussions in that back room, multiple times about Lightning. So Lightning is an L2 and it's complex and it has flaws and it's not great. Basically, if whoever wants to use it can use it, but it's the real solution should be just the L1 should be able to just handle it. It's possible. Caspa makes it possible. So
so you're saying there's not a patch on on L1. There's not an L2 patch on top of L1. Rather, you guys believe in just building it from the ground up. So
doing it right from the start. Yeah. The
I guess so.
technology is available now, so you might as well just do it. Yeah. And then as for smart contracts, so that's a great question as well. So Caspa is UTXO based, so native smart contracts, somehow they are possible, but that's not the route we're going to go for. Let me preface by saying we have like an intermediary activity right now. So we have inscriptions similar to Bitcoin. So we have something called Casplex, which is an external protocol. It's not a Caspa core product, but it's a group of sharp young developers, and they created this is a product of Caspa Ecosystem Foundation. So this is an outside entity that was created by like OKX Ventures, Ice River, the ASIC mining manufacturer, And so their goal is to stimulate the growth of the ecosystem for Caspa. And their first project that they've commissioned is called Casplex. And that allows the creation. So far, we have KRC20 tokens. So we have meme tokens and stable coins appearing on Caspa as inscription based, not smart contract based yet. So this is almost like, I think of it like an appetizer. So the main course of smart contracts is on the way. It's being developed, but that's going to be, most estimates right now are about a year out. So we do have some really revolutionary and breakthrough smart contract capability on the way. What that's gonna, the breakthrough part about that is MEV resistance will be built in. So many people may not be familiar with MEV, but that's, that could be also referred to as like front running. So if you're doing like a DeFi transaction and there's bots, I have to do my analogy here to explain it right.
Sure. Go ahead, please.
So when we were talking about, we were talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum and having the one block at a time and the relatively long block time. Think of like, if I send you guys Bitcoin right now, right? So the bus is coming every 10 minutes, right? But the transactions are waiting at the bus stop. So if I send one of you guys Bitcoin, that transaction's hanging out on the internet waiting. It's called the mem pool, the memory pool of transactions that have yet to be picked up and packaged into a block.
Yeah.
So they're waiting at the bus stop. Anybody with a little software and coding can look and see who's waiting, what address is it going to, I believe, and how much it is, and what's exactly this transaction trying to do before the bus comes and zaps it into a block, and then it's locked in. So until it's locked in, it can be manipulated or somebody else can do the idea. Particularly not so much Bitcoin, but this happens in like Ethereum.
In DeFi.
Yeah. So
you're saying that someone might be able to see someone's intention and then just basically beat them to it.
Beat them to it. So like if you're on like Uniswap or you have an arbitrage idea with Ethereum, so those Ethereum transactions, they're waiting there for 12 seconds before the next block grabs them.
Decentralization brings in transparency. So when it's transparent, it brings in the ability for everyone else to see it. So what you guys, I believe you're trying to say, are protecting the people waiting for the bus at the station, and kind of like adding, it seems, kind of a layer of anonymity or inability for others to understand who's waiting at the bus station. Is that?
It's both. Yeah. So first of all, the block times, by the time the smart
listen, Wolfie, I also like analogies, that's why.
Sure. No, you're right there. Yeah. So what happens, there's bots and there's malicious miners right now, and people who grab the idea for the transaction and execute it before that person's the originator of the transaction, and they steal the extra money. So like on swaps and stuff like that, they make the profit instead of the original person whose idea was. So between the combination of our rapid block time, by the time we have our smart contracts live, we're going to have the things are only going to be waiting 100 milliseconds, a tenth of a second at the bus stop. So it's only there. And then it's also going to be encrypted. So nobody can see anyway, even if they can look and try to do something that quickly. Yeah. So that's pretty magic. So the holy grail, as it's been described, would be a DEX on Caspa at 10 blocks per second with the MEV resistant smart contracts in there. And then they'll be trading with nobody front running the deals in there, in instant settlements of transactions, without anybody tampering.
You know what? Actually, what you're saying is an issue that I've encountered in the past. Specifically when we started developing on Ethereum, I guess about 5 years ago. And one of the things that we were working on is we were collaborating with Engine Coin project, and we were building NFTs before they were called NFTs. So we used to call them ERC 1155s, 721s, but then marketing people gave it the NFT name, although some of them are FTs. They're not NFTs, but yeah. Beside the point. And so the thing is that at the time we were building on Ethereum, and we built a solution and came to the point of launching it. And then the transaction cost was enormous. It was, I don't know, $5, $10, $20, $30 per transaction, which totally killed the project. And then we had to change things up a little bit. And then a lot of people started switching from Ethereum to Polygon, for kind of like same need that we had. and so started building on Polygon. And then I guess maybe something similar happened with some other projects, I guess Solana and maybe Polkadot. And it seems to be kind of like, just as an outside observer, it seems to be a little bit of a battle of protocols from time to time somehow. And but there is a specific, need where you have a fast blockchain, and at the same time you have the capability to do smart contracts, and while that doesn't cost a whole fortune. At least from my perspective as a developer, so I guess some of you guys are gonna win, whether Casper or maybe someone else, I'm not sure. So but I think that's kind of probably, are those, am I talking nonsense, or you think you kind of see some parallels with what you guys are doing, or see the challenges there as well?
Sure. So we're not well into the development phase of the smart contract platform. So we don't. So projecting too much is beyond the scope of my brain. So, but yeah, in general, we're trying to have like super, near instant settlement, right? So 100 millisecond block time. That's a tenth of a second. That's like that, right? And then a little bit of encryption, so it can't be front run. And then we do, at 10 blocks per second, we've had like a solid 3,000 TPS, I believe, maybe even more, which sounds like not that much when you hear some of the crazy marketing.
What's that? Transactions per second, you said?
Yeah, 3,000.
How many would you say? Because I just want to ask you whether you guys whether you stress tested it, and you said what, 8,000?
That's a good
What'd
question.
You say?
Well, 3,000 is
3K.
like a no-brainer. We fit like easily like 250 to 300 transactions in each block. So when we have 10 blocks per second, it's 3K is easy. And they've stress tested the test network more. I don't know if 6,000 or something like a lot.
Just out of curiosity, do you know, perhaps? I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you perhaps know what Visa or MasterCard guys are doing? What's their bandwidth?
I've heard conflicting numbers. I've heard 1,800, and then I've heard 50,000. So it's really hard to say. I'm not really sure. But
me neither. Yeah.
All I know is that there's crazy. So here's another analogy. You asked the wrong guy if you actually don't like analogies, because here we go.
No, I do like analogies. I'm the analogy guy.
All right, here we go.
Let's go. Wolfie.
The thing that newcomers or people that are conditioned by marketing groups of like proof of stake, like corporate projects, that the marketing teams picked up on this TPS being the thing that's important, right? They say, like, I've seen 1 million TPS, I've seen 100,000 TPS claims on some of these staking validator node things, right? Which may be true, but it's they make it like that's the important thing. But to me, that's not important. So I'm in America. We have the U.S. mail. So if I want to send an envelope from here in California over to New York, the mail will do that job for me, right? So do I really care how many EPS, how many envelopes per second or per day, EPD? How many envelopes can the U.S. mail deliver in a day? Do I care? It could be 10,000, It could be 1 million, it could be 100 million. I don't care how many other people's letters they can do. I only care how long does it take my mail to get from California to New York. It's 5 days. That's too much. So if some project, some proof of stake thing, some validators can do 1 million per second, do I really care if it takes 2 minutes for the confirmation, to lock in?
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
yep.
So transactions per second doesn't matter so much. I like the 1 second block time, and I even like better when it's going to be 100 millisecond block time. So it's like done deal. Like I press the button and it's already done.
Yeah.
That's what's important. I don't care who else is coming along for the ride. I just care that mine's done fast.
Sure.
So,
yeah. And actually, you know what? You're kind of like covering a bunch of the questions that I had for you. And since we're kind of touching the point of, so we're kind of on technology, but I want to, we have to touch the technology. I mean, I cannot get away from that. But since you kind of open it up, what are kind of like some upcoming developments on your roadmap? Or you did mention some upcoming developments. Okay, let's leave aside. You mentioned DEX. You mentioned 100 millisecond blocks. That's on the roadmap, right? Are there any, let's say, recent developments that maybe the community isn't aware of yet? And what's some of the imminent upcoming developments?
Sure. So there's not that many. So
Okay.
for starters, Just recently, we had the KRC20, Casplex, the inscriptions and memes. You had mentioned 721s earlier, so that Casplex protocol will be coming out with some type of NFT product or offer, capability, and that NFTs should be coming out through Casplex. I don't know if it's probably several weeks to a month or two, so that's neat. Then we will have a fork to the faster block speed, 100 millisecond or 10 blocks per second. So that's probably 3 to 6 months out. And then smart contracts, that's called Sparkle. And that's almost called they've referred to that as like an L1.5. So it's going to be like off-chain processing, but it's still going to be sequenced on Caspa and paid for via Caspa, from my understanding. So that's probably about a year out. And then what else do we have magical coming up? That's probably all I'm aware of for technology-wise.
Yeah.
But if I understood correctly, the smart contracts are not your primary objective. The primary objective is the speed of Caspa transactions, right?
Correct. Yeah. And in fact, that fantastic gentleman I had mentioned in the beginning named Jonathan, his I don't want to say obsession because it's not a bad thing, but his goal, his dream is to have 100 blocks per second. So how close we can get to that, I'm not even sure, but if anyone would know, it would be him, and that's what he's going for. So there's no promise that it's possible, but he's going for more than 10 blocks per second. So he wants to cram as many transactions and blocks per second as possible. So it doesn't end at 10 blocks per second. That's like a midway stopping point, or that's the first shifting gears. You start off 1 block per second, 10 blocks per second. There is a next shift coming. It's
right.
Yeah, because there are still some cryptocurrencies that can be at the moment faster than Caspa, like XRP, XLM, and so on. So can they even be compared? Or
from my understanding, the only one that's like a top 50 or top 20 or whatever, a household name crypto, that the only faster one that I know of is Solana right now. I think Solana has
That's what I actually wanted to mention, not just because of that fact, but also because of the fact they already have a DEX as well. So it seems that they're a little bit ahead.
Correct. So that's what short-term benefits of starting a company to make a crypto project is you have a lot of money to pay for stuff right away. So anyway, yeah, Stellar and XRP, I think actually are like 2, 3, 4 second block time. So I think Caspa is already faster than them. I'm not certain, but I do know the last time I checked, I think Solana has a 400 millisecond block time. So they have like 2.5 blocks per second. So when Caspa forks to 10 blocks per second, will be 4 times faster than Solana of block time.
All right, cool. So I have 2 questions that stem from this. So who is going to build this? You and which army? you know the saying,
Sure.
like me and the army behind me. So, but what is the army? So you did mention Jonathan, but for the viewers, could you perhaps mention maybe about the team and the team background? You did mention already some PhDs and whatnot. Can you talk a little bit about the team behind the project? And if you're already opening that topic, let's also touch the reputable investors and or accelerators, because you obviously need financing to finance the team. So I guess that goes hand in hand.
Sure. So this is good because I can wrap this all into like a timeline explanation and answer.
Okay.
The second answer comes first, actually, in the timeline. So Jonathan, like I mentioned, he wrote Ghost, and then there was Spectre, and they always had these spirit, like a kind of wraith. There's no wraith, but there was Ghost and Spectre and a few others. So by the time he got to the idea of really making it perfect as possible, which was Ghost DAG, he was able to secure funding from Polychain in 2017 or 2018. So several years ago, he started a company called DAG Labs, DAGLABS, DAG Labs, and Polychain invested about $8 million, I think, into DAG Labs in 2018, way before Caspa was ever launched. So they set up shop, and basically Polychain invested to have these ultra gifted individuals think and write the paper. So they did their research and wrote the paper on the protocol. Then they took several extra years to bring the concept into life in software form, and started a test net for the 1 block per second. And then by the time they launched the mainnet, the company was pretty much done with and dissolved. So the Caspa project itself is not, it's not a project. It's not a product of DAG Labs. DAG Labs is dissolved, and it has no stake in Caspa at all. There's no such thing as DAG Labs anymore. But to have these,
Yeah. So who is building it? Is it like a DAO or what?
Sure. So we have, so there's no legal entity anywhere to represent Caspa. So there's no official titles. Like I'm self-appointed director of business development. Similarly, we have a lead developer that, just out of respect, we call him the lead developer, but it's not handed. It's not a signed title from a corporation or anything. His name is Michael Sutton, and then his right-hand man is named Ori Newman, and these are two really sharp guys. They happen to also be in Israel. Then we have other guys in Germany. We have Rob in Germany. He's one of my integration guys. We have Coder of Stuff. He's wallet and address generation support. So whenever an exchange or a mining pool or a hardware or software wallet wants to integrate Caspa, I have to bring developers in to explain the breakthrough technology. Then we also have another guy who a lot of our community knows on Twitter. His name is Shai. So Shai is a PhD quantum cryptographer. Shai is a fantastic guy, and he writes a lot of the paper. You know, he writes technical explanations of how the technology works. And we have Aspect in Russia that writes a lot of the wallets and the Rust stuff. So we now have developers all around the world, and we crowdfunded two different. So we're paid for by crowd funds from a long time ago.
Oh, I thought you were kind of paid by the foundation of some sort. Typically, you know.
So
There's no foundation. Okay.
So there is. I had mentioned the Caspa Ecosystem Foundation, but that's an outside entity that was created by OKX Ventures and Ice River and a few other CoinPal and stuff.
Okay.
However, a long time ago, when we saw the 1 block per second, our original software language that the main network came out on was Golang. Go it's a programming language. And so that was good for starters, you know, to get us to 1 block per second. But then as we saw the need and the goal of increasing the throughput and streamlining, once we saw that the 1 block per second was solid, Michael Sutton realized that Rust was a great programming language to continue in. So we crowdfunded 100 million coins about 2 years ago and put them in a multi-sig wallet. And we have community treasurers that are in charge of that. I know because I am one. And then they rewrote the entire thing in Rust. And that's pretty much, we're like 95 or 98% now running on the new version, the Rust version. There's many performance upgrades. So a neat breakthrough that happens in Rust, it's under the realm of, it's considered high performance computing. And one of the neat things you had mentioned in the very beginning, here we go with analogy land, but
let's go.
The checkout at the store, right? How it takes too long. So what happens in blockchains and in every crypto project, there may be some validator nodes that can do parallel blocks, but I don't think so, because I don't think they have parallel blocks. They're still blockchains. So Caspa has these simultaneous parallel blocks. In the Go version, even though we had blocks in parallel, in the consensus module of the node software, it was still like a supermarket with only one register open. So even though the blocks happen at the same time, they had to wait in a line to check out from one cashier,
registry, I guess,
right, to be validated. In Rust, we have simultaneous different blocks can be validated inside one CPU, with a multi-core CPU can be validated at the same time. So like block A can go through one core of the CPU, block B can go through another one, and so simultaneous blocks validated in consensus inside the same computer. So it doesn't have to be your computer can do one and mine can do a different block at the same time. I can have like a Ryzen 16-core CPU running the Caspa Rust software that's doing multiple blocks. So that's pretty neat. That's world first.
You know what? So the thing is that what kind of interests me is, and actually the governance in a project like this. So, you know, typically when you have a business or a startup, someone is leading that startup and, you know, is responsible for making decisions. In this case, where you have kind of like a decentralized team, there needs to be a way to align incentives, I suppose, but then also to define the roadmap and the projects, but also to confirm those. So I guess it's perhaps how are you solving that challenge with the governance, or how, do you do it like with some incentives, or do you know what I mean? So who makes
Sure.
the final decision? Like, because at the end of the day, the code has to go to GitHub at some point, or someone has to put the code into the code repository and needs to launch it, I suppose. And there's a team that's responsible. It doesn't matter, I guess, how they came together, but something has to hold them together if I guess for the sake of the longevity of the project somehow. Does it make
Sure.
sense?
Yeah. So
How do you handle that? Yeah.
okay, so at a simpler level, or things like we have voting on Discord
Oh, okay.
for certain things, certain categories of things, right? So like, especially more in the older days when we had to pay for things, we had to pay for an exchange listing in the old days, or pay for some service or some idea, pay for a
Yeah.
website in the beginning. So we would vote. We would say, hey, who wants to do a crowdfund for a new website? And you know what I mean? And then we'll just check the votes. And if it's a yes, then we go for it. Now,
So it was super community driven, let's say, like that.
it is, but then that's more like that's like a lower level voting, lower level topics, Then when it gets to more higher, not important, but just more.
Well, system level decisions cannot be maybe made by the community. They need to be made by experts, or
That's right.
like by consultants, people who know what they're talking about, I guess.
Yeah, and what I would tell you about that, back to analogy world, is like say for example, like with kids, right? I have one daughter myself, right? And so my wife is great. Like my wife puts so much attention and perfection into raising our kid. I couldn't pay someone in the whole world to put as much care into it as her, right? And similarly with Caspa, like Michael Sutton and Ori and Aspect, the Caspa is their baby. So you couldn't pay somebody, from Solana or from anywhere. You couldn't pay someone from Microsoft. You couldn't pay anybody enough money to put the attention to detail and the care and consideration into it that these guys put. They love it. It's their deal. And they're making it they know inherently it's one of their life purposes and goals is to make it perfect, and that's how it comes out. So at that level of decision making, they take the utmost engineering care to care and detail and caution and making it perfect that you can. So that's how that comes out great.
All right. So okay, you mentioned the community, which is also one of the things I want to touch. I guess you guys have a big community, I suppose. I'm not sure if we were checking this. I guess we were checking the community. Was it Caspa or was it a huge community? I believe.
Yeah, huge community.
Huge. I think it was in the hundreds of thousands, wasn't it? Yeah. And so you must be doing something right, I guess. Otherwise, how do you collect so many people? Because in this, the thing that I mentioned, which is maybe a point of contention between us, is like where I say it's a little bit of a battle of protocols, because you don't know who's going to win. But in this battle of protocols, distribution plays a big role. So, and I see kind of community, I see it as a potential distribution mechanism, especially if they could also consume the utility of your product. I mean, that the distributed team is working on. So how do you look at you've managed to build up such a strong community. Maybe you can tell us how you managed to do that, because we would like to learn as well. On one hand, and maybe to this question to add, is there something that the community perhaps doesn't know, or maybe it's really spoken about in your Discord, but not elsewhere? I guess what I have in mind is something that might surprise the fans or people who follow your project, maybe potential partnerships or integrations that you have or something like that. So community, and is there something to look forward to if you're a community member like that?
Yeah. So we do have an extensive community. I think we have like 220K followers on Twitter, over 340 or 350K on CoinMarketCap. Our main Telegram has like 42,000 people in there. So we built that up organically. And as I was describing before, like the passion and the love of the project, and the idea that it is something special and it's a new thing, that's like a trickle down theory. Like I'm not a tech guy, but it attracted me in the first weeks of the network. And I could tell pretty quickly that something special was going on. And, crypto natives that were, always looking for a special project found Caspa, and they believe, because it's true, that it's something special. And they can tell from the passion and how humble the developers are and great people. And they can tell there's something special going on, Now so I having a giant community historically wasn't always great. Well, for Bitcoin, it was great because, 10 years ago, it was super new breakthrough technology, and people came along and they loved the idea behind it and the philosophy and everything. And it's still something special, Bitcoin. So in that case, the people were not misled. But there are some historic from previous previous bull runs, some historic communities that like were kind of unreasonably led, like a $589 XRP, right? So we know
Yeah.
Is that ever happening? We don't know what would have to happen for there to be 500
Yeah, maybe there would have to be much more money in existence on this planet.
But there's people who thought that was really going to happen, and there may be still people that do, so that's unreasonable. That's not founded in reality, But
I still see posts on Facebook about that. XRP is going to 500.
XRP to have okay, okay,
and so on. Yeah, so
with Caspa, there's no misleading or there's nothing fake going on. We have real breakthrough technology. Nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody, we don't speak about the price ourselves, but there's a lot of people online that do. And, everything that we've had to do so far that we said we were going to complete has been completed. And looking forward, there's no reason to think that will not continue. And so building the community like that organically without marketing, we never paid for marketing ever. So everything that happens, everybody who talks about it, just like you guys are doing it because it's interesting and they want to learn or they want to hear about it, or their community wants to learn about it. It's obvious when you watch some of the giant YouTube crypto channels, it's obvious that some of the corporate coins are paying to appear on the shows a couple times a week, so people don't forget about them. And Caspa never pays for that. So anything you see, anybody talking about it is talking about it because they want to, for one reason or another.
And I guess this ties into how you guys, you said that you did like a fair launch where there was no ICO. I guess that means that at some point you released the tokens. You had like a Genesis event of some sort and you minted the tokens. I guess it was something like that.
No, it was even more archaic. We did when I said we did it like Bitcoin, I mean we did it like Bitcoin. We announced the launch of the mainnet date. Now they even went so far as to not tell which mining algorithm it was going to be, was not selected. Not only did they not tell which it is, nobody knew. We voted, speaking of votes, they voted on which algorithm to use, and they picked one called Heavy Hash. And just to make sure nobody had set up, like already had these miners from another project ready. Oh yeah, I already did that one. I'll just change the config and be blasting the network the second it starts. They modified the algo, and so we have K Heavy Hash. We have the Caspa variant of Heavy Hash. So even a Heavy Hash from 24 hours before the mainnet launched, just the regular miner wouldn't work. So they made up their own algo and they just announced it on Bitcoin Talk and in Discord and everything and started the network and people started mining. And
why did you guys do it like that? I mean, I assume you did it because of, I guess, future regulatory concerns and wanted to create let's say a token where no one could, I guess, so it wouldn't, I guess, be recognized as a potential security. So I guess it had to be as fair as possible. It had to have this type of launch. I guess it has some correlation with the regulation.
Sure, that's one great reason. One great reason is the regulation, and another great reason is technically the parallel blocks. The block DAG structure cannot work in a proof of stake environment, so it has to be miners. It has to be mining proof of work to have that block DAG structure. So it works out all the way around. Sometimes, in nature, and if you just look at nature and physics and whatever, you'll see that the beautiful structures and things that are really meant to be just kind of are like built with perfection all the way around. So in our cases, we you know, it's not a security because of the fair launch, and the proof of work has to be proof of work to have simultaneous parallel blocks. So it just works perfectly. It just comes together because it's supposed to be there. You know, I'm older than you guys. You might find that hard to believe.
How old are you?
I'm 59 years old.
Oh my God.
So I'm a dino. I'm a big dinosaur. But
I'm 45, so you know, I'm behind you.
You're a youngster. But so
thank you, sir.
In the 70s, there was a rock and roll guy named Frank Zappa, you know, and he made up lots of crazy songs and great instrumental pieces. And somebody once asked him, like, hey, how do you write these great songs? How do you make up these wild, complicated songs? And he said, I never wrote a song. He goes, I only discovered it. And he says, songs work because every song there is that can be a good song is already there. You just have to discover it. You know, the mathematical relationship between the notes already works because of math and physics. And similarly, I would say that sort of like the block DAG, the Ghost DAG protocol, and the magic of Caspa was already there in physics and computer science and math, waiting to be discovered by Jonathan and Michael Sutton and Ori and Shai. Like it works. It's supposed to. It's a gift of nature and the universe and God. If you believe in God, it's supposed to be there. It was discovered. You know. Well,
in this 59 years, you've managed to master the skill of storytelling. I will tell you that.
It took a while. Thank you. That's a nice compliment.
Yeah. So maybe actually, I think I'm kind of moving more or less to the end of the things that I wanted to ask. Maybe perhaps it might be, I think, if you think that we should have asked you something but we didn't. And at the same time, you see how I'm making these, how I'm asking you 2 questions at a time.
Sure.
One question, but some
Yeah, that's
so
good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just pulling this out of a piece of paper. Anyway, so is there anything that you kind of think we missed but is kind of important? And at the same, I had an I kind of like, are there maybe perhaps some use cases, or is there a pilot of some sort that you guys are working on, or kind of like a something that you think that is not widely known but should be perhaps uncovered, or like that? Yeah. Do you forget something, and is there something super important or a pilot that you feel talking about at this moment?
Okay. Well, so I had previously mentioned the Caspa Ecosystem Foundation, and those guys, and I guess fortuitously maybe is the right word, I'm not sure. They came up with, they commissioned the creation of the Casplex protocol. So we have the memes right now, thanks to them. Then, okay, let me start this. So I had mentioned in the beginning, in the first 2 years, Caspa was community funded. So anytime there needed to be something that was paid for, it came out of like individual community pockets. Then in the beginning of the year, we had Caspa Ecosystem Foundation popped up. Then just several months ago, we have a second foundation that popped up, and it's called the Caspa Industrial Initiative. So this is a big group of energy guys, like energy producing electricity via solar and wind power over in like the MENA, the Middle East, North Africa region, and Europe. So we attended a conference about a month ago in Dublin, Ireland with these guys. And right now they're in, I think, Vienna, Austria, speaking with the Desert Initiative. There's a Desert Industrial, DII, Desert Initiative. You can Google it. So what these guys do is they have like the energy grid for you know, large portions of countries. And so with the energy, in a real general way, they'll like, if you can't make enough for some period of time, you borrow. So your country or your part of the country takes energy off the grid. You're taking it, and then when you're making extra, when nobody's really using that energy for that time period of the day or whatever, the air conditioners are off, you can contribute back and give some electric back to the grid, and other people on the grid can use it. So right now, or how it's traditionally been, they have to pay with money. They have to settle. So like, if I have a country and I take $500,000 worth of electric from you overnight, then I have to pay for that at some point with money. And so since it's different currencies and international banking, it's very expensive. It's very complicated. There's a lot of fees, and it's a lot of accounting headache land stuff. So now what they came up with, they were waiting for an open source decentralized crypto that was fast enough to do this energy trading settling for a long time, since 2016. Everything, they looked at XRP, but it was too centralized. They needed to be censorship resistant, so they can't have like anybody saying like, oh, this address is a bad guy country, so freeze that address and give us all the money. They don't want that. They want it to be like loose in the jungle, like the only rule is it's mining and that's it. So they're making something called Gigawatt token. So they're going to have this this energy trade settlement token on Kaspa, so that
that would be the utility. Okay, I get
exactly. Yeah. So then they can, because they want to settle. What's good for them, I believe, is like a 15-minute settlement time. They want to settle 24 hours a day, every 15 minutes. Like this guy owes 1 million watts. This guy gave 1 million, blah, blah, and it's all software and tokens and just settling every 15 minutes around the clock every day of the week. So that's what they're working on. So that's one example of those guys. So those guys have lots of great ideas, and there's some really big fish involved in that project, and so they're going for that.
Thank you so much. So if someone actually wants to find out more, I guess, about your initiatives, or actually wants to help out or join, because you're kind of like open source and it seems to be, a large community. So I guess people are joining the community and they're participating in one way or another. What do you think is kind of like some of the best way to find out more information, or, kind of find out more about the project, or what, or maybe even join some of the initiatives, or even propose their own initiatives? What would be the pathway to that?
Okay, so for starters,
I'm giving something back. So like, if we're already doing this, maybe some people are interested, so they would want to find out more, and let's give them a pathway to do that.
All right, sure. So for regular crypto fans, probably Telegram is our best one. We have a Kaspa main channel. If it doesn't have like 42,000 plus people in there, then you're probably in the wrong one. You have to be careful. There's scam ones that talk about airdrops, and there's never airdrops from Kaspa. So for people that want to just get a little started and chat and ask a few questions, Telegram's great. Any developers that go, hey, this sounds cool, I want to work on I know Rust, or I want to learn Rust, I want to help contribute. And by the way, we do the crowdfund for the Rust and for the Dagnite. That's a new protocol I left out, which I'll go into super quick in a minute. But we have 2 crowdfunds, and those 2 are distributed based on meaningful lines of code contributed. So we have more developers outside the original group that started the network that are working on Kaspa every day, and they are receiving pay from the crowdfund, software funds. So that's cool.
How do they join such projects? Do they find more info on Telegram or Discord, or?
So for devs, if you're a dev and you're interested in it, Discord's really the developer land. So there's developer channels and for particular topics in Discord. So anybody who's a hardcore developer should go to Discord. Really, that's where Telegram's for just regular good old crypto people. And then if you're interested on the foundations themselves, you can go to Google and easily look for Kaspa Ecosystem Foundation. And the other one is called Kaspa Industrial Initiative, KII. So KII Kaspa, or you can go Kaspa Ecosystem Foundation. That will lead you to those 2 entities. Now, what did I just?
You wanted to mention the other thing about DAG white, DAG black, DAG something you said.
So Mr. Sutton, who is the creator of Dagnite, he was advised by Jonathan on this. This is another breakthrough technology, which is realized on paper. It's proven mathematically, and it was said to be an impossibility. I'm going to really generalize here. I don't understand it like those guys understand it. But in a nutshell, right now, every at least proof of work crypto has this delay that's built in to allow for just in case latency on the internet. So Bitcoin has a really long one because it was the first one from back in 2009 when the internet was much slower, less fiber involved and everything, and not a lot of throughput. now even Caspa running right now has, I think, like an 18-second delay in there built in. It's a just in case, like it's basically like if my Caspa node, my little computer running the Caspa software has to make sure that the furthest away node in the world with the worst internet has to also know about this block before I consider it like finalized or whatever, right? So that's built in. Everybody has that, and it was said to be an impossibility to remove that constraint, that wait time from distributed computing. But Michael Sutton, the lead developer, thought to himself like 3.5 years ago, like maybe it's not impossible. And he spent about 2.5 years trying to figure out how to remove that. And then instead of having this wait no matter what thing, let's not wait at all. And let's kind of like let's ping and sense and look for trouble with the internet and the latency. Then if we sense that, hey, it's taking a long time to talk to this guy or whatever, then we'll add in a little waiting time. And then if it gets worse, we'll put a little more in. And then when it goes away, then we'll pull it back to zero, and that's what DagNight is. And that's a breakthrough tech. And
how do you spell that? Night as in medieval night or night?
Yeah,
as
the
in
old days.
Dark.
Yeah,
right.
It's DAGKNIGHT.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, DagNight. So that's also been paid for already, and it has begun to be worked on and be in development well into the next of the first 2 quarters of 2025. So that's a breakthrough as well.
So that's the one I asked before the question, like what the community can kind of look forward to. This would be definitely, I suppose.
Yeah. I left that out. Yeah, my coffee, it's early. The sun's coming up right now, so I have an excuse.
Well, the sun's coming down right now here.
Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm done. I think I asked you everything I wanted to ask and found out basically a lot of stuff. So do you maybe have any questions, Danny?
No, not
good?
anymore. Yeah.
I mean, I'm covering all the bases here, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
guys.
Thanks so much, Chris. I mean, Wolfie. So it was awesome, and I guess if there's some questions, we're gonna ask you to, or we're gonna invite you again if
Sure.
that's fine with you. And for the people watching us, if you have a comment, please post the comment below this video. Subscribe to our channel, and what else do you typically say?
Give us a like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Give us a like.
Thumbs up.
If you don't like us, then at least give a thumb up for Wolfie. That's fine. And yeah, guys, thanks so much. And until the next time.